We shall now talk about how C++ passes arrays from one function to the other, that is, how it sends the array information from the calling function to the called function. We all know that array is a contiguous memory location based data. So what that really means is an array can contain 5,000 numbers, 10,000 numbers, 5,000 names, 10,000 names. Now, normally if I send a variable from one function to the other, I will send it by value. But by default, arrays are sent by something called as reference or address. It makes sense. Suppose an array has 10,000 numbers. Imagine if I had to send the values, it would take a lot of time on the computer to copy those 10,000 numbers from the calling function to the called function. But if I take a simpler approach, let us say I just give the address of the zeroth element. So let's say S1 is my first array, S2 is my second array. S1 contains this message WEL and the null character. S2 contains the message COME and the null character. So S1 starts at 100, E is at 101, L is at 102, null is at 103. Why is it so? Because the size of each of these elements happens to be 1 byte. Similarly, if you tell me C starts at 200, I can easily tell you E is at 203 because each of them occupies 1 byte. So what C++ does is, instead of copying all of these data into the calling function, it just sends the address. For example, the second, let's say I have S1 and S2 in the called function. So this S1 and S2 are in the main. So this S1 in the called will contain the address 100. This S2 in the called will contain the address 200. Once it knows the address of the zeroth element or the starting element, since array is a contiguous block of memory, you can easily move on to the next element based on the data type. Now, since this data type was character, the next element is occurring at 1 byte. Suppose the data type was int and that machine took 4 bytes for integer, and let's say the first started at 1000, the next element would be at 1004, 1008 and so on. So if I know what is the address of the first element, I can easily travel to the other elements once I know the data type and what is the end point of that particular array. So, as I had told you, passing by value would have cost a huge overhead in the terms of performance, because of an array size. Suppose you had 10 arrays each containing 10,000 elements and you wanted to pass it to the called function, that by passing by value it would take a lot of time to run the program, because it would take a lot of time to copy it from main to say the called function. So when you pass by arrays, you need to understand, when you pass arrays to functions, any change you make to the array in the called function will also be reflected back in the calling function, because you're passing by reference or you're passing by alias. So what really happens is, the name of the array here in the other function, the name of the array in the called function actually refers to the address of the zeroth element of the original arrays. So let's take a look at the code to concatenate two strings using arrays and functions. So what I have done is, I have declared one array of type character first and second. I am going to join first with second. So just to make it simple, let's try to keep the message well and come. Okay, so let's say the first one, let's say this is first. The first one contains well and second one contains come. We'll come to that. So what we're doing is, I'm declaring a function called as concatenate, which is S1 is going to contain the address of the zeroth element of F. S2 is going to contain the address of the zeroth element of S. That means, where does F start? Where does S start? Knowing the starting location, I can easily go to the next locations till I reach the null character, because all strings end with a null character. Now what I'm doing first is, I'm asking the user to enter the first and second string respectively. Let us say, okay, so let's change this. This looks quite ugly. Let us say this is F, this is second. So this fellow is F and this fellow is second. So in first or F I enter WEL. In S I enter COME. Now once I enter F and S, well and come, okay. So in two of this, let me call this function called as concatenate F and S. So when I call concatenate F and S, I have S1 and S2. So S1 is nothing but, let's say the address of this is 100 and this is 200. So S1 will contain 100, S2 will refer to address 200. Since S1 and S2 represent aliases or nicknames of F and S, if I play around with S1 and S2, they are going to be affected here also. So what I am doing is I am declaring length 1, length 2 and I, which I have done in the prior explanation. This program was already taken a look at it. Now it's just doing it using functions. So S1 now refers to F, S2 now refers to S. Okay. Now length of S1 is 3, length of S2 is 4. So I need to copy this fellow I is 0, I less than 4 to after L I need to copy C. So in this particular loop I am copying COME. The minute I hit a null here or I exceed the length of I exceeds the length or equals the length, I come out here. And the length of L1 plus L2 I am adding and I am making a null. So F is going to contain the word COME also. So it's going to contain well, come, and then you're going to have the null character because of this particular thing. So this is at 100, 101, 102, 103, 104, 105, 106, and this is going to be at 107. So now what you need to understand here is if I had passed values, any change I had done here would not be affected. But since arrays are passed by reference or address, S1 is actually referring to F, S2 is actually referring to S. So if you touch S1 and S2, you are also actually indirectly touching F and S because the address or the value of the 0th location is sent here. And once you know the 0th location, you can easily travel to the next location automatically.